The next question concerns dealing with inherently high variance or unpredictable processes, either due to internal or external factors. We have an example. A current client, tremendous variance in content, relatively high unpredictability of external dependencies, and a strong seasonality.
This, I don't know whether I should start this or pass it along. This is a really good one. So one of the things I've been talking about a lot recently, and I've been writing some material for the book as well, is about variation and utilization. So variation is the enemy of utilization. And if you look at things like Little's law, the Kingman equation, there's some math out there that blows my mind. It's too hard to understand. But there's a bunch of math out there that says as you increase variety, you increase utilization. But as you increase utilization, you increase work in process, which is defined as the queue, the waiting time. So therefore, you want to reduce variation. One of the key concepts behind lean thinking is leveling, reducing that sort of variation in the flow so we can get continuous flow and we can actually get maximum or most beneficial use of our resources. The problem is that limited variation is the enemy of agility. So if you want to offer lots of different products and services and lots of variations on a theme, or you're working in a world that's very unpredictable, help desk support is a good example of that, customer service, then you're going to have variety as part of the characteristic of the work. So we want huge variety to offer huge choice or be able to be very adaptable and be able to be very agile. So it's a balance. You're constantly having to balance the amount of variety you give. And these techniques, I mean, I've written a lot about these techniques, but there's things, for simple things like reusability. How many of the things that you've made can you reuse in a different context, which saves you having to reinvent, redesign, remake, rebuild a bespoke version? That's a very Toyota sort of way of thinking there. But variation and utilization, they are bed partners, and you have to balance the two of them. If the utilization goes up to a certain point, the queues theoretically become infinite. So the WIP becomes infinite. You never clear it. And therefore, but if you over optimize or overdrive your resources, then you start getting into the same trap as well. If you overuse those resources, then you get into the same problem with infinite queue length. Whereas if you want to reduce utilization, you have to reduce variation. I'm going to leave that comment there and see what my colleagues have to add on that before I add anything else. Whoever wants to pick that up.
So feel free to go first.
I think only to complement the point of view of Nigel, okay, I agree totally, okay. I think one of the biggest mistakes of the organization is not staging what they expect the behavior pattern of the demand, you know. They don't have, oh, this is okay, this is correct, this is expected, this is not, okay. So if we have an expected behavior pattern, we can obviously easily see the variation and consider whether it's within the expected behavior or not. And if not, then we are facing a problem. And if we are facing a problem, we will invest effort in solving it. And this is why the variation in some scenarios happens, because you don't know if really is the expected or not, you know?
I mean, I can give a couple of tips. Let me give you a couple of tips. I'm just scanning at something I wrote. So there's some tips to reduce this problem. Standardized work. So standardize the way you do work, which is known as standard work in Toyota in the lean world. Standardized repeatable process. That will help you do little of that. Standardize or simplify products. Try and remove variation. There's different techniques to eliminate some of the variation in the ways you offer different choices. You want to maintain a variety of choice, but you want to limit the number of options that creates for you internally to offer those choices. To do that, you can, I mean, there are things like set-based design or set-based concurrent engineering. That's a thing that came out of the Toyota world. It was used to great effect on the Prius, where you can transfer variation in from the production side into the design side. So you can do multiple threads of design work to make final decisions later in the design process before locking in costs to produce. So you actually take the variation hit at the beginning, not in the mass production or the mass manufacturing, if that's appropriate in your context. You may not be in mass production of something, but you have to balance these different aspects of how much variety you offer if you have a certain amount of resource utilization available.